Well, welcome to the That Healing Feeling podcast, Ale. I am so happy to have you here.
I'm super happy to be here, Faith. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we were just saying before we started recording that it's such a full circle moment. And I don't want to be cliche because I feel like I always start my HTA interviews this way because it's such a special container within HTA. But we get so used to talking to each other every day and being on live calls. And you were just saying earlier that you were going to breathwork sessions with another student from the program. And we just become really, really close. And so it's so wonderful to come back on here and just like chat, and it feels so familiar because we were so connected for so long.
Yeah. No, I like I told you earlier, like I still stalk you on Instagram and your podcast, and I just think that's part of like the gifts that you get after each tea. It's like you're still connected. Because there's so many resources afterwards, like for us as past students or alumni, but also all of the Instagram and all of the resources you're putting out there. So it is so nice to see your face because you get so used to it on the weekly chats. But it's social media kind of really lets you connect and still talk. So I'm still a big fan over here, still watch a lot. And like you say, there's so much to learn always. So I feel like even with HTA, a lot of the new content that you're putting out, like I'm able to pick it up and be like, this is something new. This is something I can implement with all of the resources. And that's that I haven't even started looking at the self-healing sanctuary. I'm still like processing some of the tools. I'm so super excited that there's just a lot of information that's out there and love it. But love to see your face, and I love feel very passionate about this program and a lot of the work that you're doing. I know there's a lot of similar work, but I think one thing that for me has been so different is that sense of community and kind of that love and passion that we feel from you. That I feel like it just kind of really goes into the work. And so it makes you passionate. It makes you want to help others. So you mentioned breath work, like, one of the girls we met on HTA, like she lives in Miami and we went to breath work and now it's kind of our routine. Things that kind of help us mesh together and keep those tools and that resource going. We're doing it now in person, when if you would have asked me 3 months ago, the thought of meeting with someone would have been crazy, given how I was feeling.
That is so cool. Honestly, I almost love nothing more than hearing stories of people coming together in person after HTA. I have had students fly across the country to see each other, um, and continuously do so in multiple cohorts, or people who were in the same cohort and took it again, and continue to remain friends. And I do think it is a really, really special, magical little space, like corner of the internet, kind of off social, where you get this power when everyone is focused on healing, where you like consciously create a space where there's encouragement and obviously empathy and listening for situations like bumpy roads along the way. But ultimately, when the language is focused on the goal and the energy is directed on what we do want, so much magic happens, and the community component is key. And we know that, from studying the brain and how we evolved as social creatures. And so that's why I'm so passionate about community as well, which is why I don't do one-to-one, because I think, well, actually, you'd be missing the mark if you didn't have the community component. So I think that's amazing. And thank you so much for your kind words as well. That made me smile because I do really love this work, and I'm equally very passionate about this, and it lights me up to have these conversations and just to get into what we're going to get into and hear your testimony. I mean, you put your heart and soul into HTA, and you were always on those calls, and you were always encouraging other people, and you were always such a shining example, and honestly just like that evidence that it is possible. And time again, you gave the best advice to all the different people in the group, and it's just so natural for you. And so I would love to dive into, for someone who's listening and they're at the beginning of their journey, perhaps, or they're wondering, like, hey, is this possible for me? Like, this is really great to hear what you're saying, but like, surely, maybe you don't understand. I would love for you to explain, maybe as much as you're willing to share, why did you, end up here in the first place? Like, what were you dealing with, and what was life like for you before you're sitting here today, the version of, you that you are post the program?
Yeah. No, I it's so funny. I really believe that everything finds you when it's supposed to. Very big believer, good and bad, that everything happens for a reason, whether it's God, the unit, whatever you believe in. Like, I really believe there's something out there guiding us. And my story is probably resonates with a lot of people. I'm 31, so I'm in my early 30s, kind of hadn't really had a big transformation year in a couple years because you kind of get in that routine of like a boyfriend, you move out together, some kind of like how life is supposed to pan out. And I have been very blessed to come from like a very strong family. For the most part, I would say that I'm kind of living a lot of like the life that maybe you're supposed to, where you have a steady job. I have a strong sense of community within my own family, not a huge group of friends, but like friends that I could count on. But until this program found me, it was about March of this year, and I had been planning a wedding, destination wedding. And I know most people that are planning a wedding or have had a wedding are like, that's so stressful. And funny enough, like I loved it. And I really was at a point in my life where like all I could think about was like work, 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 and wedding, 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 because they're so pressing, and you want it to be perfect. So you don't realize all these kind of things you're giving up, whether it's self care or whether it's time to reflect while you're working on bigger items, which is fair because it's part of life, right? So come March, I had my wedding. It was fantastic. Like, I'll speak for my guests. It was an awesome time. And literally the day after my wedding, which was on a Sunday, I had my first, unbeknownst to me, my first full panic attack. Um, I would never wish that on anyone. And I think if anybody's ever experienced a panic attack, they know deep inside that it really does feel like you're dying. I have never think I felt that before in my life, but it really was such a shift, like literally a matter of 24 hours from being the happiest I've been to like literally feeling like I was dying in another country, not able to communicate what I was feeling. And, for someone who is just starting their new chapter of their life, it's not the way I envisioned spending my wedding night and my wedding day post that. So at that moment, it really caused me a lot to reflect on like me. First, it kind of started off very superficially, like physically, like, am I healthy? Are my labs off? And like, that's kind of that health anxiety that comes with it. And so up to that point, thank God I had been healthy, but very superficially, right? Like, it turns out I was severely dehydrated, and this was coming from like months before. And through all of that reflection, I realized that although I now knew a name for it, like this is anxiety and this is a panic attack, I have been experiencing this for years before. And I hadn't registered and I hadn't really given it a name. I just thought it was like, okay, that the music was too loud, and like that's why I got overheated, or like I'm just a naturally hot temperature person. So like when the temperature gets too, and I live in Florida, so I'm like, maybe I'm just not used to. So it really gave me a chance to reflect that I had been feeling this way for a long time. And so some of it was kind of like, is it work? Is it this transition into this new chapter of my life? And so I did start peeling back those layers, but it's very hard to do the work when you're not feeling baseline, when you're feeling like you're literally not going to be able to walk outside, or like from going from being very social to not even wanting to see my parents. And that literally happened to me in a matter of a month. So in March, I always call it the best and worst month of my life. I got married. I went to see the artist of my life, which is Adele. My sister got me tickets for that, which was super. It was supposed to be her last show. I went on a free cruise that I won, and I was really miserable the whole time. I was so worried and I was so anxious, and I really just did not feel good. And I know it sounds so cliche, but I didn't feel like myself. And what was starting to like kind of lead me down this road of not even just anxiety, now kind of a mild depression, was who am I? Like, if I don't feel like myself, but I also couldn't define who I was. And so that just, it makes you emotional to think back on that time where you lost yourself and you don't know what to do. So of course I think because of that love that I have for myself and the love I have for life, and again, I believe in the universe, I took it upon myself to be like, you need to find something. Like, you need to find something that helps. And if you're like me, you start seeing like the 1,700 different things that there is, like therapy, and you start finding what works for you. Therapy was not something that worked for me. Just probably not in that mental space that I needed to be. And so I got off Instagram. I wholeheartedly believe social media is probably like the best and worst thing at that time. But I did create a new Instagram where I would only follow like holistic, positive Instagram accounts. And Faith, your Instagram just found me. Like, I hadn't even looked for you. Like, it just started pulling up like from the explore page. And I remember you posted one of your live Instagram sessions about just anxiety. Like, coincidentally, you were talking about anxiety and chronic illness, etc. And your program was about to start. And I was like, you know, like maybe a lot of people with anxiety do, like, is this really for me? Like, am I really that bad? Is this something like, because you hear chronic illness and you're like, well, I'm not sick, I don't feel physically that terrible. But as I spoke to you and as I heard you, and I just put this here because some people are nervous to reach out. Like, to me, you're like a celebrity. Like, you were so easy to speak to. I remember you answered like right away, like, and you asked me like what's going on, and you kind of first took what I was saying versus like, well, you should just join, like find out. Like, you were like, let me, tell me what you're going through first. And I did, and you were like, dude, this program I think would be great for you. And that's kind of all it took. Like, for me, not only speaking to you, but like doing something for myself. Like, I was gonna take the initiative on top of a lot of other things that I was doing to try to feel better. You have to find what sticks with you. And so all of that led me to you. And mind you, it's not like I was feeling better. If anything, I was actually feeling worse, where I just kept feeling that spiraling down. And again, externally, maybe nothing is changing. And I think that's one of the things with anxiety. Like, it's not your external world, and you always define it as an unwanted future. But once you hit a trauma and you're able to define it, you start thinking that trauma is going to happen over and over again versus like unpacking it. Like, what am I really looking at? And a lot of that led me to you to eventually start the program, sign up. And I think I signed up and we started a week later. Like, I didn't even have to wait. Like, it was like I was like one of the final ones to sign up. And I'm like, I remember I joined the WhatsApp group and I was like, introduce yourself. And I'm like, well, how do I explain to someone that I feel like dying when I go for a walk? So I think, long story short, it was a matter of like the wedding and a lot of those things. But I think it was a long time coming, where you're just going through the motions. And I think that happens to so many of us, our age at 30, or really at any age. I think women specifically, we are just moving so fast. And like, statistically, like, women have grown so much, like in the workspace, in our professions, in knowledge. Like, we're getting higher education than even men are, that we're doing all that with, physically, our body's still biologically preparing to have kids or has kids, or like going. So you don't give yourself that space. And I think you even mentioned that self-care isn't just like an eye mask. Like, it's really taking that time to like get connected with your essence. So for me, I had lost a lot of that without even realizing it. And it kind of took, I think, I remember I went to like a Reiki practitioner, and she was like, I just think you hit a low. Like, right after the wedding, you just were used to high stress, and like, it kind of just, and that resonated so much. So, again, this program really found me at a time where it's not just because I was having panic attacks, even though I think on the surface that was initially. But as I started doing the program, I realized that the trauma, and I know that's a buzzword, but it really is something that you define as what's impacted you and your emotions and you mentally. That I realized I do have certain traumas, and this is the program that kind of led me to start working on them.
It's so interesting because as you're talking, well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, because actually, as you were talking, there was so much that I related to. And I just think so many people are going to relate to what you've said. And one of the things I wanted to touch on specifically is kind of how you said, you had this panic attack, but then you kind of realized that actually perhaps you had been experiencing anxiety for a long time, but you were like, well, this is just kind of the way things are. Like, I'm a bit hot, this is a bit loud, blah, blah, whatever. And I think this is a really important point because so many people who have chronic conditions, because we acclimate. Like, so let's say something is just difficult for a long time, we acclimate to that. We're like, all right, well, this is reality now, so I'm just going to get on with it. And we kind of assume that like these sensations that we're experiencing are normal. And so many people like don't even really realize that they have X, Y, and Z going on. Like, actually, you know what? It's not normal to be fatigued. It's not normal to be bloated. It's not normal to have debilitating cramps. It's not normal to be anxious. It's not normal to not sleep at night. Like, these things aren't normal. These are chronic symptoms that absolutely are holding people back from living a life that they deserve. Like, everyone deserves to live a life where they feel freedom, whatever that means to them. But I think at a baseline, like you said, kind of, freedom is feeling good in your body and in your mind to then be free to do whatever it is that makes you happy, right? And so what you experience, I think, perhaps in some way, everyone with a chronic condition is experiencing on one level or another, because we are strong and resilient and we adapt. We kind of just get on with it because we have to, because we're either, like you said, working really hard, we have kids, we're getting married, we're doing whatever on top of
Mm-hmm.
everything else, and we push ourselves. And women are inherently very strong. Women have high pain tolerances. Like, we are notorious for like just pushing ourselves. And so I think it's something we need to talk about, like, how far back, if you are someone who experiences a chronic condition as well, like, has this actually gone, and actually how has it impacted every area of your life? How have you had to make accommodations in so many different areas for whatever the sensations are, you know? And I think the other thing that's interesting, that because you say, you know, you had this like amazing run up and then this wedding that everyone had a great time at, that, you know, you, I'm sure, knowing you, planned like the most beautiful wedding ever and everyone was taken care of, and you have like the most amazing photos and great memories and all of that. But what's interesting, because I always say that I always bring in high achieving women, type A women, and it is this idea of almost like burnout. Like you were saying, your Reiki practitioner was like, you were just like so high, go, 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 go. And we often do that. And I find that in my programs that it is women who are like, go, 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 go. And we're feeding off that adrenaline and that cortisol. Like, that energy is just kind of like keeping us
Mm-hmm.
alive, basically, you know, and it's keeping us moving. And then when it's done, whatever it is we needed to achieve is over, that's when we experience the kind of the come down, if you
Yeah.
will, kind of like taking a drug. Whether you think about people who talk about taking different drugs, you know, and then the next day is like, ooh, that's not so good. It's a similar thing. And I talked about this yesterday on my Instagram live, like how we become subconsciously addicted to our stress hormones. And why is no one talking about this? Because actually everyone is addicted to their stress hormones if they're experiencing stress day in and day out. And so, and you know, the hit that we're getting from adrenaline and the hit we're getting from cortisol, that's a high. That's like energy. That's like an espresso, you know, something like that. So your story is similar to mine, is similar to, I think, so many people. And I think it's so validating for people to hear, hey, like, I'm not alone in this. And it's not just me. It's not in my head. It has been impacting things, you know, and actually, perhaps it's a bigger deal than I thought it was, you
Yeah.
know, because sometimes it's visible, but sometimes it's invisible. And even if it's internal and invisible, it can still wreak havoc on your life in ways that we kind of underestimate.
No, it's 100%, and a lot of what you just said now like resonates. So I really do think that this program came to me at the right time, because even listening to like a lot of the other kind of folks that you help out, yes, they do have chronic illnesses, but as I did the program, I realized if you're not proactive and you don't start really dealing with the with what's causing that, it will manifest physically. Like our mind, like kind of like, you know, we learn in HTA, your mind and your body are so connected that if you're treating one and not the other, one of the other, there's going to be a disbalance there, and it's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with. So whether it manifests physically or it manifests mentally, at one point they're going to connect. And so panic attacks feel very physical for me, but it wasn't until I was like, this is very mental. Like it's all mental, but you can't treat one without the other. So I think it's a holistic approach to doing both. And you kind of break it down, and HTA breaks it down where like even your mind, there's like layers to it. Like you can't just start meditating. Like you need to be more intentional about what you do. And I think that's really one thing that I got out of this program is being intentional about anything that I do. And so some, a lot of things we talk about, it's like an example is like working out. Like, yeah, I could go to the gym, but if I'm not intentional about my eating habits, what all of that work you're doing. And so it is, I do think this program makes you look internally and reflect on like how much are you willing to put in to get out. And so a lot of us are looking for like that external motivation. Like if I do this, I will stop feeling this versus like if I just take a second to like think about how I'm feeling, reflect. Reflecting is hard. Like I feel like a lot of the exercises we did, and not just for me, for a lot of the girls in the community, it was difficult. And a lot of us, kind of had breakthroughs emotionally because what's supposed to be like, I'm just going to close my eyes and kind of think about what a perfect day would look like. It's something scary because you're like you say, we're so addicted to being stressed. And I hadn't realized that. I just thought that I was a naturally, morning person. Like I literally every day before HTA would wake up naturally like at 4:30 a.m. It's not like I was sleeping 10 hours. Like I was sleeping pretty late. Then my body just naturally woke up and I would go to the gym and do these aggressive workouts. And I would still feel so, so intense, drinking pre workout and kind of just feeling that all day, that at nighttime, trying to like rest and just like really kind of feel that relaxation was impossible. And it's so funny if you're like talking now, I forgot that there was one point in my life, maybe 6 months ago, it wasn't that long ago, where I'm like, wow, am I gonna have to take like melatonin every night, or am I gonna have to like, I was always looking externally, like what can I take to like make myself rest, because once I was asleep, I'm out. But it was getting there, was being able to feel at peace where like I just couldn't imagine doing that without anything externally. And I will say now, and one of the wins that I had, because we do have goals in this program. You don't come in here just kind of like, I want to feel better. Like I think one thing that I really love, and I think a lot of people like you mentioned, are kind of type A, like structured. One of the main things that the girls said was like, I love structure. And I feel like when you're an anxious person, and I think a lot of people with chronic illnesses or symptoms are anxious because we're so scared of
Mm-hmm.
how I'm going to feel. I'm so scared that I'm good. Something's going to happen to me while I'm out. And this was true, not just for me, but for a lot of the girls that were maybe, physically ill. We're just so stressed that something's going to happen. And we're always just thinking of it's very hard for us to like relax and shut that off and come back to ourselves. That we really learn to make space for like, what is it that we're going to need to get there. And so the program gives us a lot of structure where we're able to say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And it's not just feeling, and this, I'll never forget it. If I want to be happy, that happiness is there for me already. It's like, what can I do to get there? And I always remember you saying like that state of being, we already have it. Whether we're in bed and bedridden, or whether we're walking but like in our minds suffering, we do have that calmness within us. It's what else can we work on that we can be in that state of being. Like what can we do to guarantee that at least once a day we're there. That was like groundbreaking for me, and I think for a lot of the girls. Yeah.
I I just love what you're saying. I love so much of what you're saying, but a couple of points I want to just um, say that really make me so happy is you talking about that kind of shift in HTA where and I agree, it is less appealing for people to purchase something that isn't the direct like black and white answer. Like this isn't a supplement, this isn't a diet, this isn't a device that you press a button. and you get the results you want. And actually, that's a quick hit dopamine, hit. And unfortunately, that's the way that things are in this day and age. And so we tend to gravitate towards that naturally, because it feels like we're accomplishing something when we buy a product or something outside of us to get to where we want to be. Now, the real way and the only way, and I'm going to put my neck out and say that the only way to sustainably heal fully is to internally do the work. And that, unfortunately, isn't, like you said, like a supplement. Not to say that those things aren't useful, because I think everyone in HTA, including myself, we take supplements. You move your body, I move my body. We eat certain foods, we drink certain water. We're all doing that, right? But I think what we know to be true is that actually it's that internal work that is what moves the needle forward and then kind of keeps us sustainably in that place. And we call this internal locus of control, meaning I am the type of person who believes that I have the power to create the reality that I want in my life, whether you call it manifestation, or you kind of take this like scientific approach, which is a big lens that we use in HTA as well, kind of talking about the brain and kind of how we can create the reality that we want by sending certain messages to the body and by looking for certain things in our reality, by holding certain emotions in our heart and in our mind, like you mentioned. But what I love about this work is that, just like what you said, it's like you become the healer, you become the person, you do the change. And then when it manifests internally, it then starts to manifest physically in your life. And it's the most powerful thing that you can do as a human being. And I think as well, you mentioned like you loved yourself enough to kind of do that. And I wanted to say initially, and I forgot to make this point, was that I think as well, self-love is at the root of all healing. And I love that you mentioned that, because so often people come into HTA and that is something like, I hate myself. And it breaks my heart. But also, I think that's something that comes out of this work, whether you come in with it or not. Self love and taking responsibility and holding emotional states, all of these things like are not the first thing that your doctor is going to tell you about, right? And don't get me wrong, our doctors have their place, and what they do is important too. But this is the missing piece. And so I love that you're saying that, because it is harder in this day and age of like quick fix, Amazon, whatever, instant advertisements, all of that. And
Mm-hmm.
so it can be a difficult sell. Um, to convince someone that this is the real work that is between them and what they want. But I think that this narrative is becoming more mainstream. I think the world is waking up. The collective consciousness is saying something different now. And I think it's empowering people all over to fight for their happiness and to love themselves enough to do that. And to recognize what energetically isn't serving them, whether it's emotional, physical, or spiritual in their life. And so that kind of brings me to my question about, you had so many wins in just such a ridiculously short period of time. I mean, the program is 8 weeks. And when people come in, they're like, I've been trying to heal for years, right? So, LOL, let's see. And we do have huge wins in 8 weeks. We do, because when you work on a subconscious level and you do this kind of work, you see huge leaps. I would love to hear about your wins, your evidence of what you were able to achieve in literally like 2 months.
No, I'm happy to share because I met my two goals. So that's super exciting for me. And I know two sounds so little, but I think the main thing that you get out of this is like you prepare now for your next two goals and your next two goals. And so it is 8 weeks, but I feel like HTA and the resources we have are, forever. So in the program, I did pick two goals, and I think what was very important, and you and Aaron were guiding us, was make them, time specific, because it is 8 weeks, but without limiting yourself to think you can't get all your goals. And I do think that's one thing folks need to be honest with themselves about. And I had to be honest with myself about. I'm like, you've been feeling this way for years. It's 8 weeks. Like, what can we do to get a win where it's something you haven't accomplished, but it's also like not something that realistically would take 8 weeks. So I do think you have to give yourself some perspective where don't limit yourself, but understand that those longer goals they will be achievable once you have the foundation. And once that's like working out, right? Once you start going to the gym consistently and you start seeing some gains, you're like, dude, I'm going to do this forever. And then guess what? You have even more and more wins at the gym or in anything you put your mind to, right? If you start studying, you get a certification, then the next one's a little bit easier, etc. So for me, I was like, what do I really want? And I made my two goals something that was more like I know I was going to have to reflect and work. Like there was nothing externally that I was going to buy, look at, invest in that was going to give it to me. And the other one was something that was kind of tangible. And so my goals was I had a big trip coming up, and that was kind of a general sentiment in the group. And I think a lot of people doing this program, there's usually some event or something that they want to feel better for. And mine was like, I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks after the program started. So I
Yeah.
was already like, we're going to see how it goes. And it was, going on a trip to Paris, which I had never been. And usually I'm so excited to go and like explore. And that was a general sentiment with the girls was like everybody wants to go out and have fun and explore. That we were all so scared. And so just knowing that there was other people that were scared kind of make it easier. So I'm like, I am gonna make that a goal because I have this support and I'm not gonna make it beautiful. I'm just gonna say that I'm gonna go to Paris and I'm not gonna be affected by and I think what's important about the structure that you guys give us is you want to be specific, but don't make it negative. So, and that's kind of like with anything, right? When I've learned now that I'm in my married life, that you shouldn't say what you don't want. You should say what you do want. Like, what do I want you to start doing? Like, what? And I think as human beings, if someone's telling me what they want and I love them, I'm most likely to do it than versus telling me what's wrong with me. And so, you learn that love for yourself. Like, what would I want me and my higher self to tell me? Like, what would they want from me that's comes from love versus coming from like, I don't want you to feel anxious. I don't want you to feel negative. I don't, like all these words that you already associate with. So I wanted to go to Paris and be able to ride the metro, go to a restaurant, like all the things that I knew, and be calm, be happy. And I think what we learned and what helped me achieve that goal, and I did, I went to Paris. It was one of the most magical times. Not to say that I didn't have my moments, right? My sensations of like, it's getting a little hot and a little worrisome, but I was able to like come back to that essence of all the tools that we learn. And again, that self love of like, this is a magical time, you're very happy to be here, doing that deep breathing, our visualizations that I had been working for with some of the exercises in HTA, where I not only went to Paris and was like, okay, I went to Paris, like I enjoyed Paris. Like I look back and I had a phenomenal time and I can't wait to go back. And so I do think even though I had only been 3 weeks after the program, because I was shifting my perception and my thoughts, I was able to say, this thought that I'm having, this little one negative one, it's not real. Just like this one, I'm saying, like, I have a six pack, might not be real until I start doing an action. And so that was a goal that I was very proud of. And it really set the bar for me because I'm like, even today, when I'm like in a crowded car or something silly, right? I'm at a mall, I think, dude, I went to Paris. Like, I rode the metro. I was able to do that. I survived that. I'm like, you could do this. And guess what? I don't think about what I'm doing at that moment because I already reached a goal. So I do think it's something that you need to be kind with yourself because it's not like I'm going to reach this goal and be perfect. I'm going to be, and it's not I don't think healed is the right word because we're constantly healing, we're constantly evolving. But I think I'm not going to be perfect. Like, I'm going to spill something, I'm going to think something, I'm going to, but I'm able to come back to it. So I loved Paris. I would recommend Paris to everyone. And funny enough, one of the girls in the community was also in Bordeaux while I went. She gave me recommend. So even while you're
Yeah.
there sharing these wins with the girls and like, dude, like that's so crazy that at the same time some of us were there or we've been there and we're able to share these pictures. Or like, I wasn't having a great time at one point because I was a little nervous and I sent a picture of the Eiffel Tower and just that sense of community. So Paris was a big one, but I think my bigger goal that I was able to meet, and I still have till today, was this feeling of peace when I woke up and when I went to sleep. Like that's just something that like and that's the one that I told you I feel like I had to work more reflecting versus like there's a trip coming, I need to be ready for this. It was more like every day of your life, like this is what you're going to do so that you're able to do that. And I haven't taken melatonin or anything to sleep since I started HTA. I also don't wake up as early anymore. Like, and that's good and bad, right? I'm like, crap, I need to go to the gym. But I think I told you, Faith, and I know I mentioned it to the girls, like I no longer feel this need to get out of bed and like, like my heart racing. And that's just been so impactful in how my day starts and how my day ends because I'm able, yeah, I think everybody still wakes up a little bit like, oh, it's the morning, like I have things to do. But you are more at a peace where you're like, okay, I have a structure. Like I know what I'm gonna do. I know if this doesn't go perfect, at least this part of my day has. And working on being able to wake up and ground myself and do my affirmations and be in theta state and kind of, all the tools that you learn in HTA, you apply that to today. And I really don't think it's prejudice against whether you're bedridden or you're sick or you have anxiety or depression. Like these are things that are just universal. And I really feel, and that's one thing I got from this program when we would do our check-in calls, it benefited everyone. And it kind of didn't matter whether you have been feeling this way for years or you've been feeling this way for days. It was just so impactful. And I don't think this program discriminates against any symptom or any illness you're having. Like I really do think you come out of it stronger no matter what you're going through. So for me, I have woken up with peace. Sometimes I'm running late, so of course my heart's racing a little bit, but now I have that morning affirmation, right? Or those 5 minutes to myself to just ground and be like, and I love something, and I actually bought the Erin Corden planner because of you. Give her commission, Erin Corden, because
Right?
I really should. And it really does help to be like, okay, the first thing for me, I can't meditate because there's so many things running in my mind. And I think this program also helps you accept what's serving you and what doesn't. And sometimes my mind racing does help me. Like I need to do this in order to like plan my day, but I don't need to let it control me forever. Like I
Mhm.
can tell my mind at this moment, you're going to do your to-do list. I know you're dying to write it, but after, once you let that go, you're going to go for your walk or you're going to go and actually make time to like meditate. And so that for me, more than Paris, was a bigger win because I think it really sets the bar to how you're going to work on yourself moving forward. And just, again, going back to that self love and that self care, it's a moment for me. And my husband, we just bought a puppy, so I can just imagine with kids. It's not really for them. Like I'm doing this for me and for my well-being, but it affects them. And I have seen a huge shift in like not only my anxiety, my just my mood throughout the day. I've seen how it affects my relationships. Like I've seen how it affects those that communication that we have, and it's so much more positive. And again, not perfect, not 100%, but it is so much more aligned with that energy that I am trying to be in versus being stuck in some of that anxiety and some of that depression. So, very happy to share. And I know Faith is going to correct me and say it wasn't her, it was us. And I agree, it is the work that we do. But I do think you and HTA gives us the space to heal, and you need to have that. And without the space, and without, for some of us, that do want some guidance, this is the space to heal, and you created that versus kind of just going out there and listening to like all the free meditation. I do think this program gives you a space to heal where you can always come back to it. Like you can always come back, and you can always, there's always going to be something where we're energetic beings, and there's always something kind of coming up in us that I do think I will always be able to come back to this program and say, okay, let me restart from lesson 3 and like kind of implement this because some things worked for me, but maybe this one didn't, and kind of try it again. So very happy and very thankful to you, Faith, for giving us that space and helping us reach that goal that we were able to do. So thank you. And I speak for the girls in my group. I wasn't the only one that had wins. There was a lot of girls that had wins. There was a lot of girls with arthritis, with different things, with a lot of anxiety and physical illness that they were able to heal and do things they've never done. So I'm so proud of all of us. Like it really was, and I don't know. I could talk about that all day. I just think it's fantastic how much there is and how much of a freedom and abundance, which is really something that resonated with me as my affirmations. Like I would love that freedom, that freedom of health, that freedom of giving back. And this program gives back 100%.
Oh, this it just brings me so much joy. I mean, I think like we share this joy, and I think that's the joy that is just palpable when you're in the presence of people who are on that frequency, and as well like when you witness healing. Like it just reminds you how powerful we are, how beautiful life is, and that's what we need to be surrounding ourselves with. And so I guess I will agree with that. It does it does create that space. Like the internet is the wild west, like you kind of mentioned earlier, and I'm very conscious of creating a space that's not like that. And you can decide what your reality is. You want to fill your reality with testimonies of healing and people just buzzing off the fact that they're powerful and peaceful and free, or you want to create a reality of Reddit users and TikTok of people complaining about how shit life is. You get to decide. That's the power of life. Like you get to choose, and whatever you flood your brain with becomes your truth. You look for it, you'll find it, you'll manifest it. Our energy is very powerful. Wherever we put our energy, right, we give life. We give life to our thoughts. And so I love it. And I think all of us in HTA, like, this is what I said at the beginning of class. I remember saying like, "Oh, don't worry. By the time you're done with HTA, you're gonna feel like we're in some weird cult or something because we're all just talking about like the
How
amygdala
we're
and like
changing the energies.
yeah, like where we place our anxiety and how we leave the room or throw it in the ocean and like all these little brain training tools, and like we're buying amygdala pillows and all sorts of stuff." And I'm like, you guys, but it's like this is how people should be talking. Yeah. So in my opinion, so
Yeah,
I love it. The energy is amazing. Like you can feel it. We're buzzing off other people's wins equally as our own, and it's just a beautiful place to be.
yeah.
And I agree. I think that like those of us who come together, I say this at the beginning, like we learned the statistic that it's about 4% of the population who wants to take this kind of control over their lives and do this work because it's not easy. Um, but I believe we find each other, in this like in all these different little places of people doing this work and evolving their brains and regulating and healing, so that, like you said, the family is one nervous system. So um, doing the work means that we heal those around us. So my question to you, for those people who are listening to this and they're in it right now, they love the energy, they love the joy, they can feel it in the conversation, they want to meet you there. But like you said, there's a lot of things out there, and um, it has to feel aligned. And I always say that to people. If it feels tense and it doesn't feel aligned, then perhaps it's not right for you right now. But if it's feeling aligned for someone, what would you say if they're on the fence about HTA? Yeah.
I mean, I've been there, so I think most people are on the fence. One, because I know that it's an investment financially, time wise, or some people also are scared to be like let down. And I think that's the bigger item, because it was for me. Like I was scared that it wasn't gonna work, and you're almost like, if it doesn't work, then what does that mean? What's out there? I would tell people, and this is what convinced me. Number one, more realistically, like reach out to you. Like you answer so quickly, your team answers so quickly. So I do think that you're a resource that can help people, and you did for me. And like that's my personal experience. You're gonna say your recommendation, and at the end of the day, sometimes that helps people. And what loved about this program that I didn't mention before, there's so much science behind there, and I feel like it needs to be a mix for me, and I think that's what resonates with a lot of people. It needs to be science and energy, and like looking out past that. But for me, it's like I need both. Like it can't just be like, let's wait for the full moon to hit. Like for me, it's also like I need to know, because we are physical beings. Like what does this mean for my amygdala? What does this mean for my brain? Like I feel like a neuroscience, scientist now, after reaching out to you and like researching. So you're a wealth of knowledge. And I think if folks are on the fence, ask the questions, join the free Instagram lives. Like you're even doing a free workshop. Like and I'm not saying that just to promote your program. I really do mean that. Any, whatever this people find, like, invest in it, like, take the time. And I did, like, I think, again, that's that self-love, like, let me research what I think is going to be right for me, because you're the only person that knows that, right? So I did take the time to ask the question. I did take the time to, like, look at the website, look through the Instagram posts, like, do your research. But two, I think this is a personal commitment. So if you're coming into any program, and specifically HTA, it is a personal commitment you're making to yourself and to your well-being and to your want to heal. And so I do think there's a time and place and that energy that sometimes align and sometimes doesn't. A year ago, this program, I probably would have been like, I don't need it. Versus at this moment, it found me, and I realized I was a little apprehensive and scared. But I think you can't, and you'll learn this more in the program. Like, do not let fear be that factor that decides. Like, look at
Mm.
this more from a place of love, of like, if this was my sister and I wanted her, and I know she's going through all these things, like, or whoever that loved one is for you, would I want her to, like, heal and have a space to heal? And the answer most likely is yes. So why not give yourself that consideration? So I really looked at it as like, am I ready to personally commit to myself? And the only answer was yes. I there was no one else, like, that was working, that's going to work as hard for me than me. And so if you're on this fence about it, it's take a moment to ask yourself, or would you do this for yourself? Like, if you were your younger self, and your younger self is crying, depressed, can't get out of bed, doesn't really see a lot of hope, would you do something that could potentially make you feel just an ounce better? And if I look at my 5-year-old self, I would say yes. Like, I think most of us would. So it's really looking at yourself and reflecting. For that second, you might not be an expert meditator. None of us are. Like, I feel like meditation is just always something you're working in. But I do think we all have the capacity to have compassion. And that's what makes us human beings. And why not have compassion with yourself? So I just think asking yourself, is this something that I'm personally committed to helping myself? And in turn, it'll help you be a better mother, a better father, a better sister, brother, etc. But you do kind of have to put yourself first. So I don't think this program is for folks that aren't ready to take that step. And I don't mean that negatively. I just mean it has to align with your value and how you foresee and want yourself to be. So for me, I know I wasn't in the right space. I know I didn't feel good, but I would always think, like, if I was a different person in the future and I was doing certain things, would that future person have taken this course? She would have. She would have done anything to help that process that involved, like, looking within versus continuing medication or just kind of supplements. And I think most of us start off by going to doctors, and we're given certain prescriptions that are not at all treating what's happening inside. It's, again, those symptoms versus, like, the actual cause. So I would say the biggest thing is to ask yourself, are you willing to commit? If this was your younger self or whoever you love, would you want them a chance to heal? I asked myself that same question, and I'm forever grateful that I answered yes. And there's a lot of flexibility with this course. There's a lot of understanding and compassion, where it's not like I'm regulated to do it, like I have to. This is very much a real space to heal, and I think you guys really want us to succeed. So for me, I really would do that homework with myself. But I think most of us get there, and I think most of us want the best for us. And I think you mentioned it early. The world right now is going through so many changes. There's so many things, but once you're healed inside, none of it matters. Like, no, it doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter, what's happening in another like, if you're healed for yourself, and I have seen that. So I would ask myself, do I want to be healed within, so that everything externally, my thoughts are not real. Like, I can change this reality. So I would ask myself that, and I think most people would say that they do want to heal. It's been a game changer for me.
You're so inspirational. I'm like, I could sit here and listen to you because we align. It's true. Like, most people don't say this with confidence, but you do. Like, you say it with so much confidence. it's so natural, it flows from you because it is your reality now. And so many people want to experience like, well, what do you mean peace is within, or how can you do, like, they want it and you have it. You like, you're proof that like it's already yours. Like you said, it's already yours. You just have to
Awesome.
access it. And the happiness, the peace, the freedom, the abundance, it's yours now. Everyone has free access. And you're such a testament to that. And I just want to thank you so much for taking your time to share your story, your testimony of healing. And I think you underestimate the impact it will have on others to hear that someone was in my boat and they came out on the other side, and without, loads of time and loads of supplements and all these other things. And you are waking up feeling peaceful. You're going to bed feeling peaceful. You have joy, you have happiness, you have freedom, you have abundance. It's all already yours. And I just think that's so beautiful. So thank you so much.
Not at all, Faith. Thank you. And thank you for creating a community for us to have that support. And my HTA group is fantastic. They're wonderful. And I think folks coming in here not only get a lot of your knowledge and this support and a testament that these things can and do happen, but you get a community from this. And so if you're apprehensive, if you don't think you're social, if you don't think, you'll come out of this a different person, no matter what. So thank you and your team so much. And I can't wait to continue the alumni classes, since I know that's changing and we're able to join. So thank you so much for allowing us to continue to grow with, these new cohorts and with your team. So love it. I couldn't recommend it enough, and I feel very passionate about it. So thank you so much for sharing your love for this work and for the community and for the world with us. And it's made all the difference.